Thank you for joining us here at Bethel Backstage. We've got a special edition of Bethel Backstage today. Normally we tie into the sermon in some way, and today what we're doing is we're talking about Christmas. And we are joined here with two couples that are dear friends of mine and leaders in our church. And so let me just introduce them a moment. This is Craig and Dee Pratt. They are longtime members and leaders here and have three wonderful grown daughters and wonderful grandchildren. They've been doing Christmas for a really long time. I won't say how long, but lots of Christmases have come and gone. And we look forward to getting some wisdom from you. And this is Tyler and Maya Carter. And Tyler and Maya are the parents of some younger children, and so different stages of life here. And our purpose today is to get some best practices with how to keep Christ at the center of your Christmas celebrations, okay? How do you utilize Christmas in parenting your home, leading your home, and to use it as a discipleship opportunity. And so we're just going to acknowledge something here at the beginning. There's no verse in the Bible that says that you're supposed to have a tree and celebrate Christmas and all the rest. This is something that Christians have done for a very long time and for very good reason. But the Bible doesn't give us any direction on how to celebrate Christmas. So we're kind of left to do it according to wisdom. And as parents, we want to make sure that our children understand that Christmas is about Christ. We live in a day where Christmas is about lots of things, and there's tons of distractions, and it'd be very easy for a child to grow up in American culture and not really get what Christmas is all about, or get that it's about something much different than him. So we want to get some best practices here today, and so we'll start with Craig and Dee. What were some things that you did, looking back now, that you're thankful that you did, that helped keep Christ at the center of Christmas in your home?
Well, I love Christmas. It's my favorite holiday of the year, my favorite time of the year. And, you know, Christmas is one day, and yet Christmas is also a season in our culture where we go for several weeks. And, you know, our kids were raised in the 80s and the 90s. And back then, you know, we would gather with our girls on Christmas morning around the tree, and the first thing we would do before opening gifts is we would read the Christmas passage from Luke about when Jesus was born.
Now you did Luke.
We did Luke.
And I want to point that out because there's two accounts. Matthew is the short one, Luke is the long one. The kids all want the Matthew account. But
Not in the Pratt house.
Yeah, in the Pratt house, boy, it was Luke every year. Yeah. So go ahead.
And it was Luke every year. And actually, it still is with our grandchildren. And the reason is, before we open gifts, we wanted to remind our children what Christmas is about, why we're opening these gifts, why Jesus came. And we do the same thing today with our grandchildren. When they gather with us and we open gifts, we do the exact same thing. We're to the point now where our grandkids are old enough that each year one of them takes a turn and reads the story. And then we ask them questions. You know, why do we give gifts? Why did Jesus come? And I would say that's one of the things that we did with our kids back then. Today, our kids, one of the things they do as well as that is they do Advent calendars, which I don't think we really did back then. Did we?
We had one, yes.
Okay. But I don't think we sat and did it each day with the kids, did we? I don't remember doing that. Maybe
but
you did.
You were working a lot.
Okay.
So.
I guess we know who was kind of managing this in the home, Dee.
My point being is that because it is more than just Christmas Day that we celebrate Christmas, an Advent calendar really is a reminder every day through that season why we're celebrating. You know, why do we have the lights? Why do we have the decorations? What is all this about? And because it's easy to get lost in our culture.
Mm-hmm. And that really is one of the encouragements that I want to have come clear in this podcast is that parents not look at Christmas as a necessary holiday to get through, but to view it proactively. This is an opportunity to instill in your child a right theology and understanding of the incarnation of Jesus Christ and why that matters so much and why it's worth being a big deal. I mean, the angels showed up and, celebrated this, and so it's right for us to similarly to do that. Dee, anything you want to add to what he said?
Well, I would just add that it takes planning
it takes intentionally prioritizing that, making that the big deal, and downplaying what maybe the world, puts into Christmas, making sure that kids really understand that, as well as the grandchildren.
I like how you said that. Make sure that Christ is the big deal. Because let's be honest, this is a month with a lot of things going on, and between the school activities and end of the year things and Christmas parties and all the rest, there's a lot of things to be thinking about during the month of December. And for a child, there's a lot of things that can be easily distracting and that they need to do as well, schoolwork being one of them. So, but what's the big deal? That's a good way to say it. Maybe to ask the question for people that are watching, in your home, or if you were to ask one of your children, what's the big deal right now? And to make sure that the big deal is Christ, and we're celebrating that Jesus has come. And the big deal can't be the tree, the decorations, the presents, the food. Grandma and grandpa coming over isn't the big deal, even though it's a wonderful deal. It's just not the big deal, right? So how do you keep Christ in the foreground, even as there are many things that perhaps are in the background? Therein lies, I think, the parenting tension. So, Carters, what do you think about that? And any thoughts you have on foreground, background, and how to?
Yeah, I think you want to obviously keep Christ in the foreground throughout the entire year. I think it's just extra challenging during Christmas because of all the extra things that the kids have going on, and also the other distractions that you guys mentioned. And so we actually do some similar things that you guys have mentioned that you've done in the past. One thing is the Advent calendar. So do you want to kind of mention that and what we do with that?
Sure. We every day that we open up the Advent calendar, and there is verses that we go through that, and with the kids, and then we did little things. So
yeah, usually the verse and then an
activities for
to
the
go
day.
along with it. So that's one of the big things. And then,
if I could just interrupt a second, where might somebody find what you do? Like, is this something that you've purchased at a store, or do you put it together yourself?
Yeah, I put it together myself, and you printed out all the verses for the month of Advent. So, yeah.
Wow. Now you need to know Maya is very creative, and that's like right up her alley. I can see you being very good at that.
Thank you.
So
Tyler, go ahead.
the Advent is one big thing that the kids look forward to. Even this morning, Willow woke up, and at the breakfast table, that was one of the first things that she wanted to do this morning was open that up and read the verse together. So that's something that they look forward to. Another thing that we have done for years is we have a decoration on our tree that's sort of I don't know, what do you call it, like a
Devotional.
Well, yeah, it's like a string of pictures from the Jesus Storybook Bible that ties to a specific devotion that we're going to read for that day leading up to Christmas. So we do one of those each day leading up to Christmas, and then like you guys, we also read out of Luke specifically Christmas morning. So yeah.
It's part of the Christian parent torture right there. My parents would add this one in there. Here's a hot tip for parents. They would say, we're not going to open any presents until this house is spotless. And we would race around the house, and the bedrooms had to be cleaned, and the beds had to be made, and everything had to be put away, and we had just extra energy that morning to get everything done and done quickly. So it's a good morning of cheap labor for getting things put together. So one of the tensions I think that we have in the foreground, background is, in our culture there are traditions that maybe could be called a distraction to Christ and the gospel. And one of them might be a large man who wears red. And I just want to sort of put out there, how have you, maybe Tyler, navigated a little bit on some of those things that, especially for small children, can be confusing. And so, what do you think?
It's an interesting topic, and one that we've varied on over the years. So I grew up in that tradition, and when our kids were born, our oldest two, we were all into that. And big into that. We would set out the cookies and stuff the night before and make a big deal out of it. And then
Were they eaten in the morning?
Oh yes.
Oh.
Yes, they were. Yeah, well, a bite out of them. Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit of the milk drink.
It's a miracle.
I know. But it was probably 7 or 8 years ago that I read an article written by John Piper about the wisdom in that. And I don't believe that there's anything wrong with that. But what convicted me when I read that article was just kind of how silly that is. Again, not that there's anything wrong with it, but there is so much joy and great news
Right.
about Christmas and what it is and what it means. Like, why in the world would you feel like you need to add anything to that? It's just a distraction from the true joy of Christmas. And so when I read that, I was like, man, that is so true. Like, what? Like, there's so much to celebrate. Why would we add anything to that? So for that reason, we have not participated in that tradition. We don't like avoid it or say that it's bad. We just choose not to make a big deal out of it, as we have done in the past, and as how I grew up. And I thought it was interesting. Maya and I were kind of talking about this earlier today. Maya grew up in Indonesia and said that in Indonesia, like Santa, or yeah, that guy is not even really a thing. So she thought when she came here,
That's because they're all naughty there.
they're all on the naughty list.
In the
So
naughty list.
when she came here, she was like, "This is kind of weird that
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
big of a deal that it has become over time." So
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Craig, do you have anything to add on that?
Not a whole lot, other than the fact that I think what Tyler pointed out was, and you as well, that the story of Christmas itself, is so much bigger than any other stories we tell at Christmas time. I mean, you think about God, coming as a baby. How much more bigger can that get? And for the reason he came was coming to save us. This story of redemption that God had put together, that he was putting into action at that point. I mean, that's a much bigger story than any of the other stories we like to tell.
Yeah. Well, and if I could add to that, I think then Christmas is the opportunity for families to have gospel conversations. And, we would like to think we're having those all the time. And, this is a regular part of what it means to be in a Christian home. But Christmas is the lowest hanging fruit of all for a parent to be able to say, let's talk about what this is actually about. And our encouragement to those that are listening is don't miss this opportunity. So Craig was a banker, and finance people talk about opportunity costs. An opportunity cost is something that you could have done, but by not doing it, you've lost the benefit that it would have otherwise provided. And my burden with this is that there is a tremendous opportunity cost and loss that families that don't make the most of this as a discipleship opportunity. We have these children for such a short period of time, and then they're gone. And what will we wish we had done to talk with them? Yes, about being, the spirit of Christmas and giving and such like that, but get it around to Christ and talk about what it means that he is Emmanuel and that God is with us and fulfilling prophecy. And these are the stories that you want to be legendary in your home, and for every child to leave solidly knowing Christ. Christmas is about Jesus and why he came, and to understand he came to save. And so it's I think for that reason it is one of our best moments, and really we should put our finest efforts into these Christian calendar celebrations that tie into to redemption. So anything that any failures or things that you look back on, you're like, I wish I would have done this or that, or any thoughts along that line?
There's always things you can look back and say, I wish I would have done this better. Obviously, I wish I would have known more about the Advent calendar.
Yeah. Perhaps you should have participated in that.
remember
Remember
now.
the card?
Dee had it covered.
He remembers now.
Oh, now he remembers.
Now he
With the
remembers.
camera
As
on, he
ancient as
remembers.
Steve tries to make me sound, I guess I'm making myself sound that way. I think there are other things you can do with your kids at Christmas, and a lot of that is helping other people involved in that. Whether it's as simple as Christmas caroling, or making cookies and taking them to a neighbor, or maybe working in a soup kitchen or something along those lines. I think it's a good time of year, and any time of year is good to do that, to teach your children about helping others. But I think at Christmas time, that kind of opens some doors to allow us to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll throw in there, I think our Christmas Eve services and making that a tradition is an easy way to keep Christmas gospel-y. And, I didn't grow up in a church that had Christmas Eve services, and, we started these 20 plus years ago. But I look forward to them, and I like the vibe, the sort of sacred joy, solemn, silent night, but joy to the world. And so I think services like that and the gathering of God's people to celebrate it, when you're a kid, these are all kind of wonder sort of things, and make it magical in a gospel way. Okay, that'd be my recommendation. Make it magical in a kingdom of God gospel way, so that the wonder of it is Jesus, not not the tree and the lights and all of that. The wonder is Jesus. And so I think your kids are blessed to grow up in your homes and your grandchildren now, and I hope that all of our families are making the most of Christmas, and we hope that these children receive, in the end, we want them to know the Lord Jesus Christ, and that's got to be our number one goal. So may God use Christmas as a means to that. So thanks for joining us, and we certainly wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we hope that your homes are filled with joy as you celebrate